Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to go through my production to-do list template, which is the list that I use for every single job that I work on. The version that I'm sharing with you has just a little over 200 tasks. My personal one, which has a lot of client-specific and job-specific stuff baked into it, is over 300. And the whole point of this is that I never have to build a production task list from scratch again. Let me show you guys how I got there. When I first started out, I was very much a pen and paper kind of guy. I liked the analog nature of it, physically crossing something off the list, that kind of satisfaction. But as the jobs got more complex and they got filled with last minute changes that would shift the priority of everything else, pen and paper kind of started working against me. I'd have post-it notes everywhere, things written in margins, writing shit on the back of my hand, no real system. It was not great for mental organization or bandwidth, and I started getting heart palpitations at the age of 24, so I needed to fix that. Eventually, I got introduced to this app that you see right here called Things 3 by someone who was pretty deep in the productivity world, and initially I was skeptical because I was like, no, I like my pen and paper, it's not broken, why would I fix it? But we sat down and he talked me through it for maybe about 10 minutes, and he goes, based on how you organize other parts of how you work, this is probably going to scratch an itch that you didn't know you had, and my guess is that you will be a power user of this app. About 10 years on, and I can say he was 100% right. This app contains pretty much every aspect of my life in it to some degree or another. I'm not going to do a deep dive on Things 3 because honestly, that's a much longer conversation, but the short of it is that it runs on a system called GTD, which is short for Getting Things Done. And it is broken into what are called areas of responsibility, which are basically overarching areas of your life. Within those areas of responsibility, you have these things called projects. And then within the projects, they are made up of individual tasks. But overall, this was actually the first proper productivity system that I had ever run into. And it was the first thing that I came across that made me feel like I had a handle on everything running simultaneously. But if what you see here has kind of resonated with you, feel free to look up Getting Things Done, GTD, that's the productivity system. And then the apps, Things 3 is one of them. There's also other ones called OmniFocus, Todoist, or Wunderlist. All kind of have the Getting Things Done philosophy baked into them. As I said, that is a whole rabbit hole, and there's a ton of content out there. For right now, we're going to focus on the template. All right, so going back, we're going to go into the BOB film production template, and you will see that this is a massive list of a ton of different production tasks. All right, so we're here in the template, and you will see that the template is roughly organized by phases of pre-production and departments. So pre-production takes up about the first 2/3 of it, and then we will eventually hit the day before the shoot and the shoot day sections of it, and then finally the wrap phases and post-production if I happen to be involved in it. Now, the way that I actually use this is I do not work out of the full project view day to day. With this many tasks, that would be really overwhelming. What I do is I will go section by section, and I will go into each department, and I will assign the relevant tasks to specific dates based on where we are in the production timeline. And then if there's anything unique to the job, I will fill in those tasks as they come in and assign the dates. So basically, this template is meant to handle the baseline, and I handle the exceptions. You don't have to spend the mental bandwidth assembling the list. It already exists. You make a copy of it, you load it, and you go. So let's go ahead and walk through this section by section, and I will highlight a few specific tasks that I've put in here over the years that have some unique stories behind them. So right here we have the production section, and this is the core of pre-production from a production department standpoint. You're going to have everything from budgets to agency questionnaires, things like catering, crew lists, crafty, production trucks, production supplies, your drivers, your PAs, all that kind of fun stuff. Most of this is exactly what you would expect, and that's kind of the point. A lot of what's on this list is stuff you already know you need to do, but the value, again, is that it's already written down. But as time has gone on, I've also run into a fire or two on set that has merited its own unique task. Something that went wrong that I never wanted to have to deal with again, and so those end up on this list too, and they stay here. So 2 tasks in this section specifically are worth calling out. The first one right here is, how many client will we have? This one exists because early in my career, I had failed to ask my producer how many client were coming to our set for one of the days. I knew client came to set, and so I assumed it was maybe 3 or 4 key client. Well, a few hours after call rolls by and 20 clients show up to set, and I do not have enough food in our headcount for catering to be able to feed everybody. So it's probably maybe 2.5 hours until lunch. And usually catering needs to leave well in advance to get back to set to get everything set up. So I had to scramble to get the headcount updated with catering before they loaded the truck to come back to us. Thankfully, they made it work, but I was sweating bullets the whole time. And so from that point on, that is a question that I ask on every job. How many client are coming to set? Because it can start out as like 2, and then it will turn into 20 before you know it. Another one from this list worth highlighting is confirm all crew have rates and hourly parameters. This seems like it would be very obvious, but when I was starting out, there were times where I was booking people in a scramble and I got them confirmed on a job without ever actually giving them their rate. So I had a music video where I booked a guy, he showed up on the day and he wanted to confirm what his rate was. In the budget, we had him down as $650 for 12 hours. He told me that his rate was $1,000 for 10. I couldn't afford to lose him that day, and thankfully he was willing to meet in the middle, but on the shoot day, it completely sucks when you've set an expectation for your producer, and I have to go to him and say, hey, by the way, I didn't book this guy on a specific rate, and his rate is going to be 40% more than what we had originally budgeted. And a lot of those initial discussions with crew are either verbal or via text message, and it's pretty much muscle memory for me now. I haven't had this happen in a long time, but I put this task in here pretty soon after I had started building this template, because I needed to keep myself honest and make sure, okay, let me check through all the crew and all the conversations I've had to make sure everybody has a rate and an hourly basis for it. Next section we'll go down to is hotels and travel. If it is a job that has travel, this will get a little more fully fleshed out, but this covers all the bases for whoever I typically need to book travel for. Flights, hotels, rental cars, confirmations to crew. But again, if it's a local job, most of this stays unchecked or canceled and I move on. All right, next section we'll go to is talent. All right, so this one is making sure that you have all the necessary talent and paperwork for them when they come on set. So when are they going to lock? Confirming that the talent are locked before you reach out to them. Drafting all the talent contracts and creating any links, sending them to the agencies, and then following up with them on paperwork and things like that. At the bottom here, I have a QR code task, which is super useful for mobile contract signing. I've used this on a lot of mobile jobs that we have, and especially ones where we have extras or background that need to sign. I will pretty much try to do every contract via DocuSign and use any kind of mobile or electronic method to get contracts signed ahead of time. That way, when they land on set, everything is good to go for them. Next section is for getting our sound person on hold and any details that they need. The main thing I wanted to call out here is how many Comtex do we need? So Comtex are the headphone packs that clients usually wear so they can hear the audio playback on set. And on commercial shoots especially, clients expect these. I had a job where our sound person had 6 of them in his kit, but we had 12 clients rotate through over the course of the 2 days of the shoot. I had not thought to cross-reference the number of client with the number of Comtex that our sound person had. So we ended up having to go out and rent some more, which was fine, but it's just one of those things where you don't want to look bad in front of client. So now that question is on this list every time. Once I get a confirmed client number, I will cross-reference it with our sound guy. All right, next up is PPM, which is short for pre-pro meeting. And these are just the meetings that you typically have the day before the shoot between the producer, the director, sometimes the production manager and DP. They all get together and they will have a meeting where they walk through what's called the pre-pro book, which is basically a breakdown of all of the creative, the schedule, the plan, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page for the shoot the following day. And the point of this meeting is to hopefully iron out any issues so that you aren't having discussions on the shoot day and are able to maximize the amount of time you spend shooting and getting what you want. Conference room if you're meeting in person, conference line info if there's going to be a call, who all is going to be present, sending out emails. Are there enough chairs? Are there food and beverages if we're meeting in person? Is there any need for wardrobe to be there if they're very particular about the styling of it? It's pretty straightforward, but it's the kind of thing that will fall through the cracks if you have one of these meetings and nobody is tracking. All right, next up, long section is location, because location problems are some of the most expensive to solve on the day, so it is worth calling them out ahead of time. Main things, is our location determined? I usually don't have to deal with finding the location, so I don't have dedicated tasks for that. Usually I'm like, hey, tell me where the location is, and I'll start dialing things in. Next up, making sure the permit is submitted, whether I'm handling it, or usually I'll get a locations person or a permit services company to handle it. Next section of this is kind of all about the tech scout. First thing, making sure that the producer confirms with me, okay, which crew do we need for the tech scout? Reaching out to them for availability and confirming that availability. Have we scheduled the tech scout? Is there going to be, multiple locations that we need to get a van for, or is everybody just going to drive to and from? This is more for features, but if you have a really long day of tech scouting, tech scout snacks, those are important to have, sending the email to the crew and then going to the tech scout itself. The rest of this are all questions that I will usually answer on the tech scout to make sure that I kind of know what our infrastructure is at each location. One worth highlighting here is trash removal needed? So I had a shoot where the location had told us that we could use their dumpsters at the end of the day after we wrap. So we wrap, our trash is piling up, and we learn that their dumpsters are completely full because it was the day before trash collection. I'd been on set for 14 hours at that point. I was ready to leave, and I was like, how the hell am I supposed to handle this? Thankfully, my producer was still there, and he had a guy that he knew that handled trash removal. So he calls him, and I hang out for about the next 90 minutes until like midnight for him to come and pick up all this trash. You can bet that from that point on, I always confirmed, can we actually use the dumpsters? Are they going to have capacity on that specific day? And as a backup, I always have a trash pickup person on standby where I will check maybe like 4 hours before wrap if we can fit everything in the dumpster. And if not, I call them and I'm like, hey, I need you out here with a dumpster or a pickup truck to take all this trash. Next up is my payroll section. Wrapbook is where I run payroll with pretty much all the companies I work with. And this section just covers project setup, start packets, time card collection, batch submission, blah, 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 blah. If you're not on Wrapbook, the specific task will look a little bit different, but the structure is very much the same. These are just kind of the initial payroll touch points to make sure it's up and running come shoot time. Next up, we've got the department checklists. So the key ones like the AD department, the camera department, G&E, wardrobe, art. All of these just kind of confirm all the key touch points for these as well, which is just the roles that we need to assign, the holds, confirmations, gear package submissions, certificates of insurance, and petty cash distribution. These are mostly just meant to be a gut check for making sure you have all the necessary crew on the job. Not a full-on manual, but it has become very useful to make sure that I am covering my ass when it comes to any department. For example, camera is like kind of one of those key ones where it's like, hey, make sure you get any specs regarding what kind of monitor VTR needs. Are you shooting multiple cameras? Do you need to be able to bounce back and forth? Are they going to be mobile? Things like, confirming the prep times with the camera house and making sure the ACs get that info. Are the ACs going to be bringing any personal gear that, you can kind of supplement your camera package with and hopefully maybe get a better deal as opposed to going through the camera house? Moving down, G&E is relatively straightforward. Wardrobe, one of the things that you'll sometimes run into on, larger, more well-budgeted commercials is proper cast fittings. I primarily work in the non-union world, so fittings aren't typically a thing that happens on my jobs. But when they do happen, you want to make sure that you cover the bases so that the wardrobe department has everything they need at the fitting in terms of like supplies. And you want to make sure that you track the times for the talent that they're there and all that kind of fun stuff. Next up is art. Yeah, it's funny. Art is actually pretty sparse because they're usually pretty self-sufficient. I will sometimes open accounts for them, but usually I'll give them a batch of petty cash and parameters for how I want them to track their expenses. And, they're off to the races. And if the job is big enough, art will sometimes have their own dedicated coordinator who handles all of this internally. So art is usually one of my favorite departments, usually because they are the most self-sufficient and most self-contained. It's usually just crazy when the ambition of the job exceeds the budget and they're like, hey, we're going to be, $5,000 over or something like that. Hair and makeup isn't a department that I've had to have a ton of involvement with. Usually I will just book the makeup artists and then I will get notes from our director or our client to relay to the hair and makeup artist to be like, hey, this is kind of the look they're going for. And then they'll ask me for any specifics. I'll kind of be the go-between. But this is just, again, to make sure that something in terms of the hair and makeup styling is discussed. All right, next up, we got the day before. And it's pretty standard stuff. A lot of it is just getting the call sheet built, making sure that we have parking maps if they're needed, sending the call sheet, sending the catering times, making sure I have petty cash and location checks. All right, so there are a couple individual things worth flagging in here. One is the check permit work order number in case you need to tow cars in posted parking. This is a very specific one, and it has only happened to me once when I was working in Los Angeles, but I had gotten posted parking for our job in front of our location, which what that means is we own 150 feet of street during the hours of our shoot. So basically from about 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., only our vehicles are allowed to park there. It is illegal for any other vehicle to park there. Well, I get there in the morning about a half hour after our posted parking has started, and every single inch of our posted parking was taken up by personal vehicles. We did not have a location manager on this job. I had to handle the permitting. And so I ended up calling a location manager that I knew and just like pacing around in front of this house being like, how the hell do I get all of these cars out of here? And he walked me through it, thankfully. He's like, go to your permit, look for the permit work order number. I need you to call this number, which is the tow line, and give them that work order number. That way they verify that you have the right to the posted parking and they will send a truck to start removing vehicles. In nearly a decade of doing this, I'd had maybe a few instances where a couple cars are in our posted parking when we show up, but never in my career had I had my entire posted parking taken up by cars. And this is a thing where it's like, there are large red and white signs posted along this stretch of road that say, do not park here, towing in force. Like, it is near impossible to miss these signs. And another thing that location managers usually do is the night before a shoot, they will actually hire a security guard if you have the budget to go out there. And as cars move out of those spots, they will start putting cones in them so the cars don't come and park there and you have it available to you when you show up on the shoot day. Needless to say, this task now lives on my list. Next section here is determining overtime and meal penalties. This is one that used to completely catch me off guard because we might be like, hey, 5-10 minutes away from lunch, and the producer would come in and be like, oh, like how much would it cost for us to go over to meal penalties? And I would be scrambling through the budget trying to calculate on the fly exactly how much it would cost for us to go into meal penalties when I'm on a countdown clock and in 5 minutes we are going to be in meal penalties whether I calculate it or not. And so now it is part of my prep the day before. And it isn't just meal penalty costs. I will actually go through and line out all costs for meal penalties, overtime for union or non-union, depending on the shoot. I'll determine any double OT if we go beyond 12 hours. And then any miscellaneous OT, so locations, a site rep, if we have a Film LA monitor, if we have a fire safety officer, if we have cops for like intermittent traffic control, or if we have to bring in, a second meal for the whole crew if we go over 6 hours after our lunch. So now that I have these on the checklist, I'm able to have all of those numbers ready to go for the producer, along with whatever production fee markup the company happens to tie to any additional costs. Next section, all of these are questions of, do people know where they are going and what time they need to get there? A real key one for me here is, does the location know what time we are arriving, and does the parking lot know what time we need to open? These two separate tasks come from the same category of problem, where I actually had a warehouse studio near downtown where the location rep was 2 hours late the morning of our shoot because he forgot we were shooting that day, even though I had quite literally talked with him about the shoot the morning before. So now I always make sure that not only do I have the primary contact and their phone number, I will also try and have some kind of secondary backup contact for the location that I can reach out to if that person is unreachable. And again, same thing with parking lots. If the parking lot that we're going to have crew parking in has a locked gate, I will confirm who's opening the gate and get their direct number. Not just whoever I'm booking the parking lot through, but the person who will actually be there unlocking the gate in the morning. Because if you have crew showing up at 5 a.m. and the gate is locked, it is not a great start to your day. And then lastly, print. If there's anything I need to print, I will make sure that I do it all here. Most of the stuff is usually just now call sheets and schedules and maybe some scripts. A lot of stuff is digital for me at this point, so I don't need to do quite as many of these as I used to. Next up is the shoot day, which is deceptively short for how much stuff happens on a shoot day. But if I've done my job correctly in most situations, I can show up to set and not really have to do that much. If we don't have locations people on the job, I'll usually have to help set up the infrastructure for the day a little bit. But I've gotten those answers earlier from the Tech Scout questions, so I know that those are the priority the first thing when I land. Plus, things are moving quick when you show up on a film set. Like, I don't really have the time to be checking my phone when I actually just need to be instructing and guiding people on what to do. And again, it's kind of instinct and muscle memory at this point. But assuming the shoot goes well, it is mostly just logistics, paperwork, time card collection, production reports, PO logs, things like that. And of course, the last one, stay hydrated. This one has been on here for a while because I used to go entire shoot days without drinking a single bottle of water. And that's not good for you. All right. And once the shoot is done, we have the wrap section. And this is where everything gets reconciled. All the start work, the time cards, the payroll, the art and wardrobe dispositions, purchase orders, petty cash, vendors, every department, all the actualizations, credit cards, just like everything that you need to handle at the end of the job so that you can turn it into the company and be like, hey, here's what we did. Here's what it costs. Here's all the paperwork in the backup to prove it. That's what this is all for. Last one on this is add job to running jobs list. I basically have a note, which is a list of every job that I've worked on, probably dating back at least 5 or 6 years. I have ones from jobs before that, but I like to keep this note along with the links to the projects whenever they drop if I'm able to locate them. I don't really need to update my resume that much, but it's super useful to be able to pull from this list when I do need to update it. And last is the post section. Most times in freelance, I'm not dealing with posts, so I'll just do an initial setup in terms of billing that will eventually come from this production. But a lot of times this section just gets ignored unless I'm being paid to help handle and track it. But at a certain point, I will put the things in place, hand it off to the company, and they will deal with it on their end. And that's the full list, guys. That is everything that I do on every single job to make sure that it goes off without a hitch, or as off without a hitch as we can hope for. Everything you saw in this list will be available in a link in the description as a plain text file. So if you have Things 3, the way that it works is all you need to do is copy that list and paste it directly into Things 3. It will populate like this in one task per row. And then the section headers will paste as tasks. So you will need to go in and manually convert those to headers, but that takes maybe a couple minutes and you only do it once. Once you have the template, from there, all you need to do is go in and duplicate the template. Go into the project, change the project name, then just assign the dates to the tasks that apply, add whatever is unique to your production, and you're good to go. Start making something. I love this template because the mental bandwidth that I used to spend just assembling a list of, what are all the things I need to do when I put together this job is no longer a thing. I can spend that mental bandwidth somewhere far more useful, and that is the whole idea. So if you want to dig into Things 3 or getting things done, I'll put some links below for you to refer to. And if you've got a task or you've got a workflow or a way that you do a job that you think belongs on this list and isn't here, let me know in the comments. I started building this templated list over 10 years ago, and 10 years later, I am still learning and still adding to it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you on the next one.